Right. So what I want to talk, sorry, I'm getting a whole bunch of messages over here. So what I want to talk about is um, what I call the states of awareness, and that's, in other words, how do we see ourselves in the context of the world? And I'd like to just say up front that these concepts that I'm going to talk about, and these thoughts and models that I talk about, they're mine. They're not based on proven scientific facts, just the things that I've noticed with my clients as I've worked with them through the years. So, all right, so let me get started. So this whole concept of expanding levels of awareness is basically, how do we engage with the world, right? What is our relationship between where we are as people and the reality that we've created? And if you have a look at it from this perspective, as we go through this course, I'd like you to think about a couple of things. Firstly, I'd like you to think about the different spheres of your life. So as an example, your external relationships, your romantic partner, or your kids, or your friends, or your professional relationships. This is all about people. It's about how we engage with humans. Our internal relationship is about our intellectual state, our emotional needs, our physical needs, our mental grit, our mental toughness. Then we also have a relationship, and a lot of people don't think about this, but we have a relationship with money. And this is actually generally a really big problem with people, is that they don't have a healthy relationship with money. And we see this time and time again, where people overspend, or they don't save. So that relationship with money is really an important thing. And then it's our almost like the metaphysical, it's our values. And values are so important because, as you'll see as we go through this presentation, the values define pretty much who we are and how we show up in the world, your values and your beliefs. What I'd like to ask you is just a couple of things. Firstly, I'd like you to approach us with what Buddhists call a beginner's mind. And that's essentially, imagine that whatever you're hearing for the first time. Okay, so you come into this webinar without any preconceived ideas about how things are or how things should be, and this is one of the best ways to allow yourself the opportunity to grow. The second thing I'd like to ask you is to apply something, once again, that the Buddhists call the wise mind. And essentially, the wise mind is, if we take our intellectual mind and we take our emotional mind and we put them together, that is our wise mind. It's the mind that allows us to balance the two important aspects of our life, being how we think and how we feel. I'd also like to just say up front that this is a doing presentation. So please, get involved. If you want to, ask questions as we go along. I'm going to ask you to do one or two really basic exercises, because this is not a theoretical presentation. This is something to hopefully give you skills to help you as you progress through life. And the last thing that I'd like to just say is that approach life with a mindset of growth, a mindset of grit, a mindset of potential. And if you can put all of these things together, I think you're going to get a lot out of this course. Okay, so to start off, we're very interesting creatures, humans, right? Because we have this ability to live in two different worlds. We exist in the physical world. This is the world of rocks and trees and water. A rock is a rock. It doesn't really make a difference who you are, right? If you see a rock, that's exactly what it is. If you see a tree, that's exactly what it is. It's a strong factual world in which we exist. But there's this other world, and that's our internal world. It's our fictitious world, or more importantly, it's actually our programmed world. It's the the world that we have um, internally, and that affects how we show up in the real world. And this world is based on the programs, the stories, the lessons, the values that other people have given us, as we've gone through life. And yes, you start off as a child, you don't know anything. Your entire world is dependent on your caregivers. And as you start progressing through life, so you start, anyone who's got kids, you get to the stage where children start to realize, or toddlers start to realize, that they are different, they're separate from who you are. And that's part of their growing journey. But as they're growing, as their minds are expanding to engage the outer world, so they become more susceptible to taking on the stories that they're given by their parents, by their teachers, by their friends, by other social circles. And we get, eventually in life, we get to a point where we need to decide, are we still part of somebody else's story, or are we part of our own story? And, which parts are we following people on, which parts are our own? And that's essentially what levels of expanding awareness is all about. We're social beings, right? We love being around people. In fact, we need to be around people. If you have a look at our two, from what I believe, our two greatest needs are as humans, the one is purpose and meaning, right? We need to feel like we're making a difference in the world. And the other one is connectedness, right? We need to have relationships with people. I don't know if any of you have seen the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, but the long and the short of it is he gets stranded on an island all by himself, and he creates, he takes a basketball and he makes it into a human, a human face, which he calls Wilson. And that is how deep our need is to be connected to something or someone else in our external world. It's a really, really powerful driver. So that's what we're going to talk about over here. And let's move on to, what I mean when I talk about the levels. So once again, this is just my perception of the world. And I believe that there are 5 levels, and humans need to do this. We need to put boxes around things, right? We need definitions. We don't like chaos. So, I say there are 5 levels. Some people could say there are 3. Some people could say there are 40. But the reality is that there's no really distinct boxes in anything that we do. So this is just the way I view the world. In our conditioned world, this is the world that I was talking about, where we're toddlers. We start growing up. We take on other people's stories, and we keep believing in those stories until we make a different decision. And this conditioned level is it can be a very dangerous place to be. We see this in terms of like cults or extremism, fanatics, and that is they take on the stories of others, and they don't own anything themselves. And this is a big thing why people like to be conditioned, because you can always externalize the responsibility for your actions, right? So if you do something, you can, and I'm just using this as a concept, you could say, well, it's the will of God, or I was just following orders, or whatever it is. And it allows you to externalize your responsibility. But not only just externalize your responsibility, you totally disempower yourself. And the moment you disempower yourself, you actually cannot show up in your own world. Now, this world over here needs some kind of external stimulus. Something has to happen for you to go, hold on, is this really my world? Or is this the world that somebody else has enforced upon me, and I'm just running this subconscious program, the subconscious software in the back of my mind, right? And the thing with people that are in a conditioned state is that for the vast majority of them, they don't know they're in a conditioned state. And they need something to happen that makes them go, oh, wow, I didn't think about that. Let me start exploring. And the moment you start exploring, you move from a conditioned state to a curious state. Now, curiosity is an incredible state to be. And I'm not just talking about curiosity about your own story. I'm talking about this constant curiosity we need for life. Always be curious about life. Always be trying to learn. Always be trying to grow. Like I said, have a mindset of growth. Always be in a position where you're trying to take yourself to the next level. Now, in the level of curiosity, there are a couple of things that are really important, and this might be a difficult concept for some people to accept, or so not concept, a difficult perspective or idea for some people to expect, and that is there's nothing judge from a judgmental perspective. We think of things as good or bad, sinful or sinless, and in our inner world, there's no such thing, right? If it doesn't matter what your thought is, you can have a thought which everyone goes, okay, that's already good and healthy, a thought that's going to make everybody happy, or you can have a really dark thought about hurting somebody or doing something. Let's just use the term bad, but that's not true, right? These are just thoughts. They're just information that you are getting about how you perceive the external world. Okay, so there's no such thing as a bad thought, no matter how horrendous you might think a thought is. You might, somebody may have a thought of, blowing up a bus with children, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's terrible. It's a bad thought." It's not, right? It's just information that you are receiving within yourself about how you want to show up in the world. Now, yes, you can start putting judgment on it when the person starts to act, but at the moment, without that action, all that's happening is the person is exploring different options. Now, yes, a lot of people could argue that when people have these dark thoughts, when people have these thoughts, in fact, dark thoughts or good thoughts, that they translate into action, and that's true, right? And as human beings, we're very we find difficulty in separating the real world and the fictitious world. So from that point of view, you'll be 100% right. But what I'm saying to you is, it doesn't matter what you guys are thinking. If you, if you're thinking that, I shouldn't be a doctor, I want to be a comedian, it's okay. Explore those thoughts. Now, this is the great thing about the level of curiosity, is we start challenging those boundaries. We start saying, the world has put a boundary around me, and I want to push that boundary. I want to see, is that a real boundary? I want to see if that is my boundary. I want to see what happens if I push it. I want to see what happens if I break it. The problem here is that there is the risk of being expelled from the group. If you're in a conditioned state, you're usually part of a group. And the moment you start questioning, you stand the risk of being expelled from a group. Right? So, a classic example, is a highly religious family, and one of the kids, as an example, decides they don't want to be religious, or they're not going to follow the traditions, and they get kicked out of the group. Now, that means that you're alone, right? And like I say, we need to be connected. So the fear is that you're now kicked out of that group, and you actually need to go and find another group where your interests, your values, your perception of the world are aligned. So the level of curiosity is a really fantastic one, because it's that spark, it's that stimulus. Something has happened. Wow, I need to start, questioning the world. The other thing I'd like to quickly cover in terms of curiosity is the fact that what we're willing to put into what we're willing to put into anything, what we're willing to invest, is a function of our emotional attachment to it, right? If we have a huge emotional attachment, a very strong, a powerful emotional attachment to something, you need a lot more energy to break that attachment. If you think about it in scientific terms, if you have an atom and you want the atom to, jump to the next level, it needs energy, right? And that's exactly the same thing over here. The alignment level is a really interesting one, because what you're starting to do here is you're taking this curiosity, this questioning, and you're starting to actually align yourself behind it. Okay, so you're no longer curious, you've accepted what is a story, what isn't a story, what is yours, what isn't yours, and you start aligning your actions, your thoughts behind your new awakened self, your new state of awareness. Now, this alignment, I just also want to mention, you don't always have to just be, you're not always just conditioned for your entire life or curious. You can be at different levels with different aspects of your life. So this alignment is actually where you start saying, okay, I'm going to start living my truth, as they say. Now, the interesting thing over here is that if you're part of a group that is that almost like an extreme group, a group that has got very strong beliefs, if you're part of that group and you don't want to get ousted, you can do something which which I like to think of as changing, without changing. So outwardly, you do what you need to do. You do the rituals, you follow the group norms, you follow what everybody's saying, but inside you keep to your truth, right? And that's, for me, one of the saddest states to be, when you can't be who you are, when you can't tell the world who you are. I think it's a really sad place to be. And if you have a look at the difference between alignment and reshaping is where you take control of your life. You are willing to do the things that you need to do, and other people must accept it, right? We hear stories of people that are gay, right? But their parents will never accept them, so they hold it within themselves, and they rob themselves, of the beautiful opportunity to experience the things they need to experience. And then people get all surprised when they go, oh, wow, he was married for 20 years, he had 4 kids, and then he came out of the proverbial closet. And this just because he wasn't he wasn't being true to himself. He wasn't acting in the way he needed to act. People that have become lawyers and accountants and engineers because it was expected of them. So they followed the rules so as not to get kicked out of the group. Now, when you think about reshaping your life, it's an amazing journey, because what you're actually doing is you are rewriting your software, and you move from a state of the outside world controlling you to a state of you impacting the outside world. And you have to also accept the fact that while you do this, every action is going to have consequences. Okay, so you must be willing to accept those consequences, and that's okay if you want to be your true self. So if you don't mind getting kicked out of a religious group and finding another group, or getting kicked out of a social group and finding another group, that's fine. But you have to be adult about this, right? You can't go back to that conditioned level where you try to externalize responsibility. Okay. One of the biggest problems when it comes to this reshaping is we don't really know, what am I reshaping? Where do I start? What is it that um, is not mine? What programs am I still running that are not mine? And that takes a lot of thought, that takes a lot of introspection. And the truth is that anybody who decides to go on this journey, it's going to be a lifelong thing, right? You don't just flick a switch and you go, okay, well, fantastic, I've re-engineered my entire life. It's an ongoing process because you keep taking on new information, you keep learning new things, being exposed to external stimulus. And it's these things that really help you start to create, who you are and who you want to be. Let me give you a bit of a personal example. For 20 years, I was a management consultant. I worked for one of the big four, and I thought that that's what I wanted to be, because when I was a kid, um, I heard somebody saying things like management consulting and MBAs, and it just, resounded with me because they were talking about how much money these people earn. So I grew up with that model in my mind. And um, I'm not saying I was really good at my job. I was good at what I did, but that wasn't who I am. And it took a couple of um, events in my life for me to go, okay, hold on. What I actually want to be doing is working with other people, but not in not in the sense of being a psychologist, but in the sense of helping people get to their absolute level, the next level, their full potential. So that's what I'm talking about in terms of, in terms of this reawakening and this reshaping. The last level that I just want to mention is merging. Now, merging is a really it's an interesting level because not everybody's going to buy into, once again, this concept. For me, merging is about when you're living your life um, understanding that you're impacting something greater than just yourself or the external world, right? Some people call it, connecting to the higher power or connecting to God or the universal energy or whatever it is. And merging is the realization that we are nothing more than extensions of the universal energy, right? If you have a look at all of the scientific theories, everything is about energy and matter. So if everything is about energy and matter, we therefore, have to be an extension of that, and we also have to be connected to something greater than ourselves, right? We don't exist, in isolation, almost like somebody cutting the wires of an appliance, right? We don't live in that kind of world. We live in a world or a universe where we are connected to everything else. And I believe that our role, our purpose is to do the things that enrich that energy. So when somebody else needs it and somebody else takes it, they have a more enriched, a purer energy for them to do things. And this is the way, as an example, this is the way I look at things. If you put your energy into helping others, those others are receiving a rich, not necessarily a rich, an enriched level of energy. And that enables them to achieve things that they wouldn't have been able to achieve without you, right? And it's a paying forward kind of mentality where you've helped somebody, they can help somebody, and this thing just keeps going on and on. So the ability for you to merge with a greater energy, I think, is one of the that for me, that's the pinnacle of where you're going. Now, Maslow calls this self-awareness or self-esteem. For me, it's that merging. All right, so that's basically the 5 levels, at a very high at a very high level. But that's basically how I view the world. And my belief, my perception, my theory is that wherever you find yourself in a conditioned state, try and take yourself to the next level and the next level and the next level, right? So one of the exercises, I'd like you to do, when you have the time, is to go back and to look at the different spheres of our lives, of your life, and then try and see which level do you think you're at for each of these things. And as a I suppose as a guideline, don't do it for every single one, because you'll be there for the rest of your life. But choose the important ones. Choose ones, as an example, your relationship with your parents, right? What level are you at regarding that? Choose something as an example and I know I talk a lot about money, but it's such a big one, because people don't have a healthy emotional relationship with money. Um, and if you don't believe that you can ever make money, you'll never make money, right? And we see this a lot with people that grow up in abject poverty, where they've never had money, so they don't know how to create a mindset of growth, a mindset of abundance. So I say to you, take like 2, 3, 4, these things that are really, really important, and make a decision in terms of, or figure out where are you in terms of the levels, and where do you want to be, right? And this is where you start creating your platform of growth. And this is where you start your journey. This is actually the point at which you start your life. So, from an exercise perspective, I'm just recommending or suggesting that you go away, and you do this at some point. And I would do it sooner rather than later, because I think this is such an important I think that this is such an important topic. If you look at the bottom left, our internal relationships. We go to the gym. So, well, not now with COVID, but we do exercises to keep our body physically healthy, to look good, to feel good. We spend time studying, or we spend time learning, or engaging with the world and getting information. And so our intellectual part is also nurtured, it's looked after, it's growing. Some people may be religious, some people may be spiritual, but we invest time once again in these pursuits. And what's really amazing is that if I said to you, what I want you to do for a week is, I want you to go and write down what you do every single day for a week. Okay, and you're going to write down things like, got up, um, made the kids breakfast, packed school lunches, um, went to work, met friends for lunch, whatever. And you're going to take this list and have a look at it. And then I want you to ask yourself this question: where in that week did you put time aside to invest in you as a human being, to invest in your relationship with yourself, to invest in your next level of growth? Because we get so busy trying to look after everybody else that we never take time for me, right? And I know people go me time, but me time is not just sitting and having a cup of coffee, by yourself. Me time is when you sit and you actually allow yourself to figure out who you are, where you want to go in life, what is a relationship you want to have with the external world. For me, it's meditation. For me, I like to meditate twice a day. I like to do half an hour in the morning. I like to do half an hour in the evening. And that's me time. And I try and do it every single day, because I found it to be so valuable. And there's a plethora of research out there on the benefits of meditation and mindfulness. The benefits all the way from health benefits. They're using mindfulness and meditation now to help patients with cancer, right? And to help them and they've seen that the pain levels of, or the reported pain levels of these kinds of patients are decreasing. I'm seeing a much larger portion of my clientele moving from individuals to corporates, where corporates are asking me, please come in and teach us mindfulness, because they're starting to understand the value and the power of giving people tools to allow them to internalize things, spend time on themselves, grow properly within themselves, within their own core, and then bring that to the rest of the world. So it's an amazing thing that we're seeing over here. And a lot of people go, mindfulness is the buzzword, and everybody's going, oh, you need to be mindful. But very few people understand what mindfulness actually is, and the power when you take me time every single day to invest in yourself, and you do it in a mindful way. In other words, you do it consciously. So once again, that's just a bit of a insight into what I do every day, and why I try and do it, and why it's so important. Okay. So this is I suppose starting to bring everything together, and this is about choice. Okay, we can either grow by choice, or we can grow because we are forced to grow. Right? Life doesn't stay the same. People don't stagnate. If you are stagnating, you're actually moving backwards, because the rest of the world continues to move forward. And I see this a lot with the people that I work with. The biggest one, down at the bottom right, is being stuck in this conditioned state, being stuck in this past, being stuck in, my partner cheated on me, right? So I don't trust other relationships, or my parents didn't allow me to, explore my sexuality. You've got to get to a point where you say, I'm an adult, right? I'm responsible for myself now, and I can't keep blaming other people for where I am, right? For living in this world of fear of being kicked out of a group, or fear of not being accepted, or and not taking action because of it, right? You just sit in there and you go, okay, well, I'm just going to blame everybody else, but I'm not willing to take any action and move by myself. On the top part, this is the great part. This is where you are people that are compelled to act, right? And if you can do it, growth will come in one of two ways, right? Growth comes from conscious awareness, or it comes through pain. And you need to choose, which one you want it to be. If you choose to do it through conscious awareness, this is where you do the exercises, you start jumping from level to level, and you welcome growth not as something to be feared, but as something to be welcomed, right? It's you know that the world is going to change, and instead of becoming fearful of this change, you become excited about the journey in front of you, right? Excited about figuring out who you are. I've been doing this now for 10 years, and every day I sit there, I start thinking, okay, hold on, that could be interesting. Is that who I am? And if I have a look at the growth that I've gone through over the last 10 years, I'm a fundamentally different human being that I was, right? And this is because I first started out experiencing growth through pain. And then I made the conscious decision that I was going to grow through awareness. When you're in a situation of high levels of fear, and you want to take action, this is things like complying to the fact that you don't want people to know that you're secretly practicing something, or secretly living another way. It takes courage, right? Change takes courage. And the moment you start um, giving yourself that courage, giving yourself the permission to change, giving yourself the comfort that it doesn't matter, what happens in terms of your current world. You will recreate, you will re-engineer, you will, redevelop a new world in which you actually have an authentic place. Okay. So this is basically how I view it. And, of course, I'm going to promote trying to do it through curiosity, because it's a lot, it's a lot easier than the alternative. In terms of courage, in terms of suffering, sorry, people, I'm not talking about this deep physical suffering of being stuck in a civil war, being a child soldier, or being held a prisoner of war and being tortured. I'm not talking about that level of suffering. I'm talking about the deep emotional level of suffering because you refuse to accept the way the world is. And you keep trying to change the world to the way you want it to be, as opposed to changing the way you are with regards to the world. And as long as you keep allowing yourself not to face the way things are, you're going to suffer. And once again, this is how the Buddhists look at it, and that is, life is suffering. Yes, we are going to suffer, but how much you suffer, how you suffer, this is all your choice. And life actually is simple. If you think about life is really simple, right? Because there's only two things. There's only two things that you can do. I mean, this is really how simple. I'm not saying it's not difficult, but simple it is, right? Firstly, you can only do something right now. Okay, it's in this exact precise moment, right here, right now. You can't do something yesterday, it's been done, and you can't do something in the future because it's still to be done. You can only act right now in the present. And you only have two choices, right? You can either choose to do something or you can choose not to do something. That is as simple as it becomes. And the moment you start realizing that you need to be present, you need to have a look at the way things are, and then you need to make a conscious choice on what the next step is going to be. The moment you start doing that, your life is going to be very, very different. And let me give you an example about conscious awareness. We get out of our cars, we lock our cars, we walk into the shopping center, we come out and we go, okay, I forgot where I parked my car. And it's because you weren't consciously aware of having a look at the landscape, having a look at the things, that can help guide you back to your car, such as, I parked opposite a Woolworth sign, those kinds of things. And that is how we go through life. We go through life asleep, on autopilot, like we drive home, on autopilot or to the office. Conscious awareness is seeing the signs, seeing the road signs, knowing that you're turning left, knowing that you're turning right. So that's like a bit of an analogy. And finally, what I want to talk about is what our opportunities are. You may hear a lot of people, a lot of I suppose let's call them motivational speakers, for want of a better expression, talking about the fact that it's not about your resources, it's about your resourcefulness. And I think that this is a very myopic view of things. And once, okay, my things here are also seriously oversimplified, but I think it's a matter of both how resourceful you are and the opportunities that you have, right? If your resources are low and your opportunities are low, you're going to stay trapped where you are. Let me give an example. During the I think it was the Somalian War. During the Somalian War, the UN was over there, and there was a young guy called Ishmael Bear, and somebody in the UN took an interest in him, and they wanted to use him as a spokesperson or a symbol for the atrocities that were happening over there. And so they chose him specifically. He's now he's an international speaker. He's an author. He's consulted by the UN. That had nothing to do purely with his resourcefulness. He was given the opportunity to become greater than he would have been under normal circumstances. And there I think 350 or 400,000 child soldiers in the world. The thing that made Ishmael different is the opportunity he was given, right? So if you're in a situation, and I'm speculating that most of the people in this room, have got opportunities, right, to do something different. We also end up in a situation where people are highly resourceful, but their opportunities are low. And these people end up searching, right? They go on a journey. They go, I know I can do something. I know I can be better. I know I can take myself to the next level. And they start looking for these opportunities for growth. Classic example, I don't know if you guys can remember, there was a movie with Will Smith called Pursuit of Happiness. He had low opportunities, but he was highly resourceful, and he went out there, and it's a true story, and he became a very, very wealthy person. The other side is where you have high opportunities, but you're not resourceful, right? And your life starts going into a decline. And the reason why this happens is eventually your opportunities will start running out. Okay, so if you've got a whole bag of opportunities, if you're not going to take advantage of them, they are going to run out. So, I mean, right now, if you think about it, in terms of being an entrepreneur, you've got to get up every single day. You've got to think about what you need to do. You've got to think about your next steps. You've got to think about who do you know? Who can you make a phone call to? What can you tell somebody? How are you going to solve somebody's problems? And if you don't use your resourcefulness to this, all of these opportunities will vanish. Somebody else is going to take advantage of them, or somebody's going to lose interest, or whatever it is. And the last one is of course, we are, where I think we'd all like to be. That's where we have high opportunities and high resourcefulness. Classic example, if any of you have read Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, he talks about people like, Bill Gates, being at the university when computers were fairly new and be given time to work on those computers, right? So that's high resourcefulness and high opportunity or high resources. And what you're going to notice in life, or what I'd like you to maybe start becoming aware of, is how things shift, because you will eventually either end up in a position of growth, or you will end up in a position where you're trapped, right? You very seldomly stay in search or in decline, right? They tend to move you in one direction or the other. So that's basically, what I think, or how I view the world, and it's got to do with have a look at the stories that you are telling yourself. Have a look at the programs that you are running, and ask yourself this question: that is, how is this story serving me, right? How is my current belief on a certain thing serving me? Is it giving me the information and the structure and the opportunities and the resources to take myself to the next level where I know that I can be, I know, that I can achieve? How is this story serving me in terms of getting over the next obstacle, right? And if your stories are not serving you, if they're not allowing you to gather that energy, to gather that, like I was saying with the atom, to gather that energy to jump to the next level, why do you want to hold on to that story? Why do you want to hold on to something that keeps you back, right? It makes, I understand there's fear and these things paralyze us. We don't want to move. But the stories, if you're living somebody else's story, you're living a lie. All right. And you're the only one who can make the decision whether or not you're going to stop living in this world that other people have created for you, and you're going to start engineering your own world. Some people are going to buy into it and help you, some people are not. And what you're going to find is the people that don't support you, it's got very little to do with you and not supporting you. It's got to do with the fact that they are losing control. They're losing power. People like to be in control. People like to have power. Um, the moment you start to change, you start breaking the control that they have over you. And that is why people fight back, okay? Not because you're choosing to live your own life, but because they have lost the ability to dictate where you want to be. So I suppose what I can say, in closing is all of us, to some extent and in different parts of our lives, we live other people's stories. It just is what it is. I'm not saying it's totally possible to only live your story. I don't believe it's possible. I don't believe it's realistic. Okay. What I am saying is start having a look at your life. Start having a look at the important aspects of your life. Your relationship with your kids. Are you the parent that you really want to be? Or do you come home irritated or frustrated and the kid says something and you start screaming? Or do you want to become the parent that stops, takes a breath, and then instead of reacting to a situation, you start consciously deciding how am I going to respond to the situation? So start just becoming aware of your life. Start becoming aware of how you show up in the world. Start becoming aware of the implications of your actions, and not just on other people, but on yourself. Because when you start giving yourself the permission to change, you not only change your external world, but more importantly, you change your internal world, right? You change the relationship that you have with yourself. And the moment you start getting that healthier relationship, the happier you're going to be in your life, and the more growth that you're going to have. So that's, at a high level, that's basically what I want to say, and that is, go out there and figure out who you are, and then make a decision whether that's the person you want to present to the world, or not. So I hope this has given you some things to think about, and I really hope this information helps you along whatever journey you may choose to take. So thanks for listening.
So I'd like to open up the floor to see if there are any